Abram gazed up at the star-filled sky, pondering God's promise that his descendants would be as numerous as the glittering lights above. It was a promise he struggled to believe, for his wife Sarai remained barren even in their old age. Abram had taken matters into his own hands once, fathering a child Ishmael with the servant Hagar. But God made it clear this was not his plan. Ishmael and Hagar were sent away, and God affirmed that Sarai herself would bear the promised son. As the years passed, God repeated his covenant with Abram multiple times. He even gave Abram and Sarai new names, Abraham meaning father of many nations, and Sarah meaning princess. When Abraham was 99 and Sarah nearly as old, 3 divine visitors came to their tent with an astonishing announcement. Within the year, Sarah would give birth to a son. Sarah laughed to herself at the absurdity of bearing a child in her old age. But just as foretold, she conceived and gave birth to a baby boy. They named him Isaac, which means laughter, for he brought such joy to his elderly parents. Abraham and Sarah doted on the miracle child. When Isaac was weaned, they hosted a grand feast to present him to all their friends and relatives. The future God had promised was unfolding before their eyes. Some years later, however, Abraham faced the ultimate test of his faith. God instructed him to take his beloved son Isaac and offer him as a sacrifice on Mount Moriah. Abraham's heart was torn with anguish, but his trust in God prevailed over the turmoil. Loading up wood for a burnt offering, he set out for the mountain with Isaac and 2 servants. On the 3rd day, Abraham saw the appointed place in the distance. Leaving the servants behind, he continued on with Isaac, who carried the wood. The boy soon noticed something missing. "Father, we have the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the offering?" "God himself will provide the lamb, my son," Abraham replied, his voice heavy with sorrow. When they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar and arranged the wood. Then, with a heavy heart, he bound Isaac and laid him upon it. As he grasped the knife to slay his son, an angel of the Lord called out to stop him. "Do not lay a hand on the boy or do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your only son from him." Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught by its horns in a thicket. Overcome with relief and gratitude, he sacrificed the animal in place of his son. Abraham named that sacred spot, "The Lord will provide." God had proven faithful by providing a substitutionary sacrifice to redeem Isaac's life. It was the greatest test of obedience and trust Abraham had ever faced, and he had not withheld even that which was most precious to him. Many years later, Abraham reached the end of his long and eventful life. God had blessed him richly and fulfilled his promise to make Abraham into a great nation. Before he died, Abraham passed on the patriarchal blessing to his son Isaac, entreating God's favor to rest upon him. Isaac and his wife Rebekah were also childless for many years, wondering how God's promise would come to pass. Finally, in answer to Isaac's pleading, Rebekah became pregnant with twins. The Lord revealed to her that the older would serve the younger, contrary to custom. From birth, the twins were a study in contrasts. The firstborn Esau was ruddy and covered in hair, while Jacob emerged with smooth skin, grasping his brother's heel. As they grew, Esau became a skillful hunter who loved the outdoors, while Jacob was content to stay among the tents. Isaac favored Esau, savoring the wild game he brought home, but Rebekah favored the more mild-mannered Jacob. One day, Esau came in from the field famished. He begged Jacob for some of the stew he was cooking. Jacob seized the opportunity and offered to trade a bowl of stew for Esau's birthright as the firstborn son. In a moment of short-sighted folly, Esau agreed. With an oath, he sold his birthright for a single meal. Years passed. When Isaac was old and blind, he decided it was time to bestow the patriarchal blessing on Esau before he died. He sent Esau out to hunt some wild game and prepare his favorite savory dish. But Rebekah was determined to see her favorite son Jacob receive the blessing instead. She quickly devised a plan. While Esau was out hunting, Rebekah had Jacob bring her 2 choice young goats. She prepared them into a dish just the way Isaac liked it. Then she took Esau's best clothes and put them on Jacob. She covered his hands and neck with the goatskins, for Jacob's skin was smooth, unlike Esau's hairy body. Disguised and armed with the tasty food, Jacob went in to deceive his father. "My father," Jacob said. "Yes, my son," Isaac replied. "Who are you?" "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may bless me." Isaac was perplexed by how quickly the meal had been prepared. He also noted that the voice sounded like Jacob's, not Esau's. Suspicious, Isaac asked Jacob to come near so he could feel him. He ran his hands over the goatskin covering Jacob's hands and neck. "The voice is Jacob's, but the hands are the hands of Esau," he mused. After smelling the scent of Esau's clothes that Jacob wore, Isaac was convinced. He ate the food and then laid his hands on Jacob to bless him. "May God give you of the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth, and plenty of grain and wine. Let people serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you." Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence when Esau returned from his hunting. He prepared the savory food and brought it to Isaac, eager to receive the blessing. "My father, sit up and eat of your son's game, that your soul may bless me," Esau urged. Isaac trembled violently, realizing he had been deceived. "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me, and I ate it all before you came, and I have blessed him? Yes, and he shall be blessed." When Esau heard his father's words, he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry. He pleaded for Isaac to bless him also. But Isaac solemnly replied that he could not retract the blessing given to Jacob. With the birthright and the blessing, Jacob had claim to the inheritance and the covenant promises. Esau was left with only a lesser blessing. Esau burned with anger against Jacob for stealing the blessing that was rightfully his. He plotted to kill his brother as soon as Isaac died. When Rebekah learned of the threat, she urged Jacob to flee to her brother Laban in Haran until Esau's fury subsided. Isaac agreed it was wise for Jacob to leave, hoping he would find a wife from among their own people rather than the pagan women of Canaan as Esau had done. With his parents' blessing, Jacob set out for Haran. As the sun set on his first day of travel, he stopped for the night and lay down with a stone for a pillow. That night, Jacob had an extraordinary dream. He saw a ladder reaching from earth to heaven, with angels ascending and descending upon it. At the top stood the Lord, who spoke to Jacob. "I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. And in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you." When Jacob awoke, he exclaimed, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." He took the stone pillow and set it up as a pillar, pouring oil on top of it. He named the place Bethel, meaning house of God. Jacob then made a solemn vow, saying, "If God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone, which I have set up for a pillar, shall be God's house. And of all that you give me I will give a full tenth to you." With a newfound sense of awe and purpose, Jacob continued on his journey to Haran. He couldn't see the coming twists and turns of his path, but he knew with certainty that wherever he went, the God of his father and grandfather would be with him. No matter what trials lay ahead, Jacob took comfort in the promise spoken over him at Bethel, that God would never leave him until he had fulfilled all he had pledged. As Jacob journeyed on, he reflected on all that had unfolded, his own deceit in stealing Esau's blessing, yet also the unmistakable leading of God's hand upon his life. Time and again, God had shown himself true to the promises made to Abraham and Isaac. Now Jacob found himself the unlikely heir of that covenant. a man on the run but bound for a destiny greater than he had ever imagined. With each step, he walked forward in faith, trusting that the God who had brought him this far would lead him onward still. For the promise was not just to Jacob, but to the great nation that would come forth from him, a people chosen and set apart to know the one true God and to be a light and blessing to the entire world. And so Jacob pressed on,